everyone! Good morning! So for today, I am going to share to you some important tips that an educator or future educator must know in order for them to be aware about the important tips or techniques that should be applied in the field of teaching. So the tips that I'm going to share to you is anchored to the 8 topics that we are already discussed in our subject, which is the field in study 1. The educator or future educator like us should be aware about the importance of our learning environment. It is not only enough that we know on how to teach our students, on how to execute our lesson, on how to apply the teaching strategies that we have in the teaching learning process. But as an educator, we are also responsible to always consider the learning environment that we have for our students to learn effectively. So in the first lesson of our subject Field in Study 1, we have discussed the school environment. So as an educator or future educator, it is necessary for us and very important for us to always consider the learning environment that we have. So the learning environment that we have should be conducive. So how we can say that the learning environment that we have is conducive? How we can say that the learning environment that we have for our student is conducive for them to learn effectively? So we can say that a learning environment is conducive if it is clean, safe, orderly, and free from distraction. When we say safe, so the learning environment, we can consider that the learning environment is safe if there are no threats, any threats that can bring danger to our students. So we can say that the learning environment is safe if it has if it is having no, as I said before, that no threats that can danger the students. So for example, like the school like NQCI, so we have the security guard to ensure that our learners are safe. We have also, the school should also have the CCTV cameras that could help the administrators or could help the school to monitor the safety of the students, to monitor every events that happen inside the school premises. Because if there are some crimes or accidents that happen inside the school premises, it could help the school to solve that problem, and it could also help the students to feel that they are safe in the school environment that they have. If we say clean, of course, it is self-explanatory. The environment or the surroundings of the school is clean, it has no waste. So because having a clean learning environment is important to not compromise the health and safety of our learners, especially during the time of pandemic, that the cleanliness is very important in the school premises to avoid the spread of the COVID-19 virus. So that is the importance of having the clean environment in the school premises, because it helps to not compromise the health and safety of our learners and all of our school personnel. The next is orderly. If we say orderly, I can say that it's connected to being clean. If we say orderly, so lahat ng facilities ay maayos, naaayod, and it is free from distraction. When we say free from distraction, the learning environment of the students is free from distraction, like the major barriers in learning such as noise. So that is why the school have built panels it is not only to have the safe environment but also to avoid the barriers. So we build panels. So for example, in a school, kaya nag-build ng panels, for example, is malapit siya sa kalsada kasi commonly naman is nasa highway yung school. So to avoid the distraction that coming from the people outside the school premises. Kasi halimbawa, like in the school, in Bonifacio National High School, I'm just going to use it as an example. So, dahil dati, wala doong panel yung school. So, nangyayari, during class hours, dahil maraming dumadaan na tao, gawa ng malapit siya sa kalsada, tapos may dadamang sasakyan. So, instead of the students to focus on the teacher who is discussing in front of the class, so, yung attention ng student is nababaling minsan dun sa labas kasi nga walang panel. So, what is the importance of having for example the panel to avoid the barriers and to make the school free from distraction. So, we can also say that the school is free from distraction, is conducive if it is inclusive. If we say inclusive, the school fosters the inclusivity and the inclusivity. I can say that the school is inclusive if the normal students and the students with special needs are socializing with each other. So for example, na pinopromote nga ngayon last time that we studied in the subject, one of our subject, na ipinopromote ngayon ng education ang inclusive education, which is yung students with special needs are going to learn together with the students, the normal students. So they are not going to be separate because it helps the students with special needs to learn effectively if they are learning with the normal students, kasi mas napi-feel nila that they are not different from others. Kung isasama natin, kung magiging inclusive yung classroom, mas na-motivate na matuto yung students, makisocialize, gawa ng they feel that they are belong to the others. And as I said, the classroom or the school environment is conducive if the teacher fosters belongingness, na kung saan is all students are having a good relationship with each other. So, in the lesson 2 of our subject Building Study 1, we have discussed the learner's diversity in terms of their needs, their interests, and of course their cultural background. So that is why we have tackled about the indigenous people. So it is a question that what is in focus on the indigenous people. So as a future educator, it is focused on the indigenous people, the importance or significance of having a keen awareness of one's identity, cultural beliefs, and their cultural background, of course, cultural differences. So bilang isang educator, so it is not only enough that we know on how to execute our lesson. We also need to have an awareness. We need to have an openness or open-mindedness on how we can handle the diversity of our students. We all know that our students have different cultural backgrounds, specifically the indigenous people. So as we studied, we are not only teaching kung paano hinahanda tayo, hindi lang kung paano natin i-handle yung mga students natin na nandito sa pattern. We are also trained on how to socialize and on how to handle the indigenous people, because hindi naman natin alam in the future kung saang field tayo ng school mapupunta. Pwedeng like Sir Andrew and the documentary video that I watched, na napunta siya dun sa lugar kung saan nagtuturo siya sa mga IPs. So, hindi lang pati na dapat na alam natin kung paano natin sila i-handle, gawa ng kailangan din natin iyong ituro sa ating mga students on how to pay respect, on how to socialize with the indigenous people in a way na they can't insult them. So, bilang isang teacher, is dapat alam natin on how we are willing, kung na dapat willing tayo na explore yung kanilang cultural background, on how to adapt with their cultural background. Not only on the indigenous people, but also to our normal students, sa ating normal students na may iba't iba pa rin naman ng cultural background, because our students can learn better if they feel and they become motivated to learn, if they feel that we care for them, if they feel that we love them, and if they feel that we are interested with their personal cultural background. At mas na foster yung respect inside the school, inside the classroom, kung mismo tayong teacher is open-minded tayo dun sa cultural diversity of our students. So we can promote this in the school. So for example is through conducting an AP week. So kung saan dito sa AP week is through having the cultural backgrounds. For example, in the AP week, we have tasked our students to perform various indigenous cultural dance, kung saan ipapakita yung iba't ibang cultural dance ng Philippines coming from various indigenous people. Tapos sa pamamagitan ng AP Week is magkakaroon ng socialization yung ating students sa pag-implement natin ng different activities na magiging involved sila. So, as a teacher, we should think of ways kung saan is mapopromote na yung respect to each other, kung saan mapopromote din not only ourselves but also our students, na sa pamamagitan halimbawa ng isang activity is mas makikilala nila yung isa't isa at matututunan nila na i-respect yung kanilang diversity. In the third lesson, we have discussed the learner's diversity in terms of community and home environment, kung saan is na-discuss dito yung four types of Bomrand's parenting style. So there are four types of Bomrand's parenting style, which are the authoritarian, the authoritative, the permissive, and the neglected parenting style. So first, let us discuss what is authoritarian parenting style. So authoritarian parenting style occurs when parents sets rigid roles and high expectations to their children, and they are not allowing them to make their own decisions for themselves. So this means that the parents are the one who sets rules and regulations for their children. So that is why as the children grow up, so they become dependent, because their parents are the one who only sets the regulations for themselves, and they only need to follow those regulations to avoid punishments. So this means that the parents is the ruler while the children is only the follower. The next is the authoritative parenting style. So in authoritative parenting style, so the parents still have involvement in setting rules and regulation and boundaries for their child. But in this type of parenting style, the parents give more freedom for their child to make their own decisions for themselves, and they let them to learn from their mistake. So the authoritative parenting style means that can be considered as the democratic parenting style, because both parents and the children talks about the rules and regulations that they are going to be set and should be followed. Another parenting style that we have is the permissive parenting style, which means that the parents allow their children to do whatever they want to do freely, and they are usually give in to what their children wants. So dito sa parenting style na ito is yung relationship ni mother, ni father to their children is parang friends lang sila, parang buddy-buddy lang sila. Kaya minsan is hindi na din na-implement yung authority ng parents na minsan naman ay inaabuso ng children. So, ayun, hindi na na-implement masyado yung authority. So, this means that there is few rules and regulations set by both children and parents. So, the last one is the neglectful parenting style. So, as you can see, in the neglectful parenting style, so the parents do not interact much with their children because sometimes they are busy or they don't have interest to be involved in their children's life. So dito naman sa neglectful parenting style is minsan ito yung pinagsisimula nung tawag dito ng pagre-rebelde nung bata. Anong iniisip nila na yung parents is hindi sila interesado sa buhay nila. So, commonly is nangyayari lang naman ito sa mga rich family na laging busy yung mother and father, walang time dun sa anak para kumusta yung maghapon mo, kumusta yung pag-aaral mo, ganun. So, iniisip kasi nila nung parents na sapat na ibinibigay nila yung mga pangangailangan ng kanilang anak without knowing na kailangan din nila ng guidance ng parents. So, why do we discuss this? So, it is very important na malaman ng isang future educator the importance of this for parenting style kasi tayo yung ikalawang magulang sa school ng mga estudyante. That's why we have to teach them the reasons behind the parenting style that they have in their homes. At para din ma-educate natin sila ng tama kung paano ba sila magre-react dun sa parenting style na meron yung kanilang mga magulang. We have the second parents of our children. So for example na lang is the student that experiencing the neglectful parenting style. So as their teacher, as their second parents, we have to educate them. We have to explain to them the reasons of their mother and their father. So as their teacher, as their second parent, we have to educate them kung paano sila magre-react sa situation na meron sila na instead of magre-rebelde sila, we have to give them advice on how to react properly on that circumstances or situation that we have. For question number 4, how important for the students to have an appropriate learning environment? So, it is very important for the students to have an appropriate learning environment for them to learn efficiently and effectively. Because based on my experience, so if we don't have an appropriate learning environment, so it is not effective for the students to learn. Kasi halimbawa, when I was in senior high school, during the time, the NQCI doesn't have enough classroom facilities because the education department during that time is under the construction. So, we have lack of classrooms. That's why there are times na nagkaklase kami sa kubo, minsan sa stage, kung saan merong available. But one time is yung lahat ng kubo sa school ay occupied. May mga klase, pati yung stage. So there are no available learning space for us. That's why our teacher decided to conduct our lesson or our class in the middle of the school field. So dahil nandun na kami sa gitna, kahit lilong naman nung time na iyon, is hindi pa rin makapag-focus. Most of us cannot focus properly to what our teacher is discussing to us kasi ang dami ng distraction. Madami yung mga students na dumadaan sa hallway, tapos yung ingay na narinig namin kasi nasa open space kami. So, hindi rin kami makapag-focus kahit gaano pa kagaling magturo yung teacher namin, kahit ano pa yung teaching strategies na gamitin niya. Kung wala tayong maayos na learning environment, our students could not learn effectively. So, this is the truth because it is based on my experience and most of us during that time in our class, even though we have acquired knowledge, but not all of them, not all of the information that we have discussed is we can't comprehend because of the barriers, especially the noise. Kasi nga under construction yung education department, so ayun yung noise, yung barriers, tapos yung mga nakikita pa sa paligid kasi nga nasa open space. So that is the importance of having the appropriate learning environment for the students. Nakakapag-focus sila ng maayos kung nandun tayo sa lugar kung saan it is suitable for learning, kung saan nandun tayo sa lugar na less barriers, dun sa lugar na safe, kung saan wala tayong, the students would not think about their safety kasi safe yung environment na learning environment na kinalalagyan nila, mas matututo sila at mas mai-apply natin ng maayos, mai-execute natin ng maayos yung lesson sa ating students kung meron tayong appropriate learning environment. And it can also help the students to achieve their full potential if we have the proper or appropriate learning environment for them. In Lesson 5, we have discussed the importance of understanding the school curriculum. So how it will be beneficial for us as educator to understand this curricula in our future career. So as educator, we are considered as the curricularist. That is why we are really responsible to understand and be familiar to the different curriculum in our school for us to excel in our teaching career and for us to know on how to properly apply it in the field of teaching. So therefore, it is really important for us to be familiar and to be knowledgeable about the different school curricula for us to become an effective curriculum planner, curriculum writer, curriculum implementer, curriculum initiator, curriculum innovator, and of course, curriculum evaluator. So as teachers, we are tasked to plan, to design, to implement, to initiate, to innovate, and evaluate the curriculum. That is why it is a must for us to understand the different school curricula. Kasi kung hindi natin alam yung various school curricula, hindi paano tayo magdi-design ng school curriculum, darating yung time na isa tayo sa magiging representative or isa tayo sa mga mapapasama sa mag-initiate ng, for example, is ng bagong curriculum if the current curriculum needs changes or needs improvement or revision. Isa tayo sa mag-i-implement ng curriculum, magpa-plan, magdi-design at mag-i-implement ng curriculum at of course mag-i-evaluate nito if it is effective or not. That is why it is very important for us as teacher to be knowledgeable about the different school curriculum. We also discussed the different learning principles, and the question is, which do you think is the most important among the learning principles? So if I were the one who answered this question, I choose the setting of clear and high expectations of the learning outcomes as the most important learning principles. It is because through having a clear and high expectations and through setting a clear and smart objectives. When we say smart is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So the teacher will be able to execute properly the lesson. The teacher will able to execute the lesson smoothly, and the students can also learn effectively. The lesson, through having the clear set goals of high expectations of the learning outcomes, is the lesson have the correct direction. Kasi kung meron tayong properly set clear goals and objectives, is yun ang magiging guide ng isang teacher kung paano ma-attain yung expected learning outcomes ng students. And through the help of the clear set goals and objectives, is the teaching learning process will be successful, and our learners will become learn effectively and efficiently. So, end the lesson, which is all about utilizing learning resources and ICT. So the question is, what is the importance of integrating technology in the teaching learning process? So it is very timely nowadays. So as an educator, it is the advantage of integrating technology in the teaching learning process is that our students can relate to what we are teaching to them. Because nowadays we are teaching the 21st century. We are in the 21st century world and we are teaching the digital natives who is always hungry with the technological trends in education. So it is very important for the teachers to integrate technology and the teaching learning process, which could help the learners to learn effectively, and it helps them to motivate to learn, to be motivated to learn, to catch their interest, and of course for them acquire more knowledge through the integration of technology and the teaching learning process. What matters is the teacher should know on how to appropriately implement and execute the integration of technology and the teaching learning process. Kasi sa pamamagitan ng technology is mas nagiging interactive yung classroom environment na meron tayo. Unlike before na the traditional teaching, practicing the spoon feeding, passive learning. So through the use of technology is mas nagiging interactive yung classroom environment. Yung ating classroom environment. So for example, is the integration of technology is we use video presentation in our lesson. So through the use of video presentation, it is considered as one of the technology. So through the use of video presentation, we can ask our students after the video about their insights about it. So instead of basta lang tayo bigay ng information sa student natin, is mas nagiging interactive yung ating lesson, mas nagiging active learner yung ating students, at nai-turn yung traditional classroom environment into the active classroom environment sa pamamagitan ng integration of technology and the teaching learning process. Aside from that is ating yung skills and abilities ng students natin on how to utilize technology is also enhanced, na atin din silang naiihanda o nai-prepare din natin sila in their future field, in their future chosen field, kung saan is mas na-enhance din yung kanilang critical thinking abilities at mas nagiging globally competitive citizen sila through proper integration of technology and the teaching learning process. In accordance with Lesson 8, the topic in Lesson 8, which is all about the assessment of for and as learning. So, why do you think it is important for the teacher to determine whether the student understands the lesson while teaching in progress? Of course, it is very important for the teacher to determine whether the students understand the lesson while teaching in progress, for them to know the learning gaps and the initial teaching problems that occur so that it can be addressed. Early. So, for example, is after the discussion, si teacher nagtanong doon sa kadiscuss niya lang, and the students did not, kumbaga, nakasagot siya, pero kumbaga hindi pa ganoon kalalim yung pagkakaunawa niya doon sa lesson. So, as response to this, the teacher ang gagawin ni teacher is i-discuss niya ulit ng bago ng mas malalim o ng mas malawak yung elaboration niya, nabibigay siya ng another example para mas higit na maunawaan ni teacher ni students yung lesson. So, yung question and answer technique in teaching is also part of formative assessment or during teaching and progress. So it is also important for the teacher to determine the understanding or comprehension of the students during teaching in progress, because it will help them to know what part of the lesson needed to be improved or needed to be elaborate for the students, and mas nakakatulong din yung determining ng understanding ng student during the teaching progress para agad is na-address yung problems in teaching. It can also help, so therefore the formative assessment is very important to determine what are the problems or the learning gaps that need to be addressed so that the teaching of the teacher should be improved as well as the students' learning. So that's all for this video. I hope that you learned a lot from this. I hope you understand some of the tips that I shared to you, and I hope that as a future educator, as an educator, we are going to apply it in our real life situation, because if those knowledge that I shared to you, if those knowledge that I have is not being applied in real life situation, so it is useless. So the most important is what we know, what we understand, is what we applied in our real life situation.